Hi there, welcome here. My name is Jenny and I'm going to be walking you through a few things you need to know to get started with a crochet project. The first thing you need is obviously some yarn and a hook, and your pattern that you're following is going to give you everything that you need for information for what type of yarn you can use or should be using for that pattern and the hook that you need. So for the stitches I'm going to be showing you today, I'm using the Wool Ease Thick and Quick and a number 9 9mm hook. And I think if you are just starting out and you're practicing before you make your project, it is helpful to start with a larger yarn if you have one and a larger hook, just to get some practice. It can be a little bit finicky at the beginning, but with practice you're going to find that you're going to get the hang of it very quickly. Okay, for a lot of patterns you're going to be starting out just making a simple slip knot, and slip knots are not tricky to do, but I will just show you a couple of times nice and slowly how to make one. So I have my yarn tail here, and I'm going to wrap the other end around 2 fingers, cross, so you're making an X, and this is just like tying your shoes. You're going to just push it underneath and pull. Now you have a larger loop here, but you can pull the end and make it smaller or bigger, or pull it right out. I'll show you one more time. And if you need to go back and practice and pause, you can do that. And pull it tight. And that's the first thing you're going to need to know. Before we can move on to the next stitch, which is a foundation of crochet, the chain stitch, we need to be able to have some way of holding our yarn so that we have a good tension. If my yarn is just sitting on my hand like this and I crochet, it's, first of all, it's going to be tricky, but also the tension, or how tight things are here, it's going to be kind of all over the place. You might be able to get away with just holding it however you want, but it is going to be a little bit more tricky. So if you can find some way of tensioning your yarn, making it a little bit tight, but not so tight that it won't move, that's going to help. So what I like to do is wrap my yarn around my little finger, and you'll see that here I can clench it tighter or looser if I need to pull it. I can loosen my finger a little bit or tighten it, and it tightens. So wrapping once around your finger and over the top and around. And now I like to bring it in front here, in front of my middle finger here, and then I hold on with my thumb. So with my middle finger and my thumb, I'm holding usually either the yarn tail or a little bit of the yarn here, but usually the tail or the project. One more time, around the finger, around the top, and under, and you're gonna hold it like this. And you can practice just tensioning it if you want to a little bit. Now this yarn here is what we're going to be using. We're going to be crocheting with that yarn. So as I show you this and how to do a chain, this is going to be moving through your fingers like this. Sometimes you have to let go and just quickly get it back in position, but that's how you're going to tension your yarn. Okay, so now we're going to be looking at the chain stitch, which is the foundation basically for any crochet project. So here I've got my slip knot, I've got it tensioned around my fingers, and I'm going to hold on to my yarn tail here with my other fingers in this, my left hand. Now to chain, you're going to yarn over, which means bring the yarn from the back of the hook to the front, and you're going to need to turn your hook a little bit to pull it through the loop. I'm going to show that to you again. Now you can bring the yarn over it, or you can actually just take your hook and go under like this and grab it. Now, if you keep it straight, it might get a little bit stuck here. So I do like to turn it so that it's going into that bottom of the stitch there like this. This is going to take a little bit of practice, but you will get it quite quickly. And you'll see here that you can make this bigger or smaller. And I would practice making a long chain, especially if this is the first time you're crocheting. You're going to probably do this slowly, and then you'll get faster and as you go. And you'll want to grab on a little bit closer to the hook every once in a while to keep going. And as you go, the yarn is going to move up through your fingers, and you'll pull, and you'll probably need to move your fingers up. You can make some big chains. You can sort of practice different sizes of them. The nice thing about crochet is if you do make a mistake and you're like, oh, this is pretty nice until I get to here, then there's this massive chain here that looks different. You just pull it out. You can pull the whole thing out very easily. So just practice doing some chaining. See if you can get the tension to be about the same for each chain. That is going to take a bit of practice, because as you pull up this loop, you kind of have to know how far you want them to be. And each one might be just a little bit different as you're getting used to it. That's okay. When I was a child, my grandma, Florabelle, she was teaching me how to do this, and I would just sit on her couch and make long, long, long chains. I always wondered what came next after that. How do you get it to be a project after doing a chain? And so I'm going to show you that next. Okay, so after you've learned how to chain your work, your yarn, we're going to next learn the single crochet. Now, single crochet is quite a simple step. And what you're going to do once you have your long chain, and if you want to go back over these chains to make sort of a square of fabric, this is what you need to know. This loop here on the hook is not a chain. That's just our working yarn. So the last chain that you did was this one right here. And there are 3 parts to each chain. There's sort of like 3 little loops. You'll see kind of a V here. There's one here, there's one here, and if you turn the work around, you'll actually see a little 3rd bump here. So go ahead and look at your own work and see if you can find the 3 parts of a chain. So if I look at a different chain on mine, I've got 1 loop here, 1 loop here, and at the back, there's a 3rd loop. Okay, so if you're going back and you're going to crochet a single crochet, we usually skip this first chain because this chain is going to bring us up to the next row. And we're going to go into the 2nd chain. You can either go into that top little loop at the top of the stitch, or you can go under 2 loops and into the 3rd. So now see how I've gone there's 2 loops of that stitch on top. I think that when you've just chained and you're making your first row, it is actually easier just to go under 1 loop. So you're going into the center there. So now I've got that working yarn and I've gone into the first stitch here. And it's kind of like you're going to chain again. You're going to pull up a loop. So you're going to yarn over the hook, pull some of that yarn through that chain. Now I have 2 loops on my hook. I'm going to yarn over and pull through both loops. Now I've got 1 loop left, and that was a single crochet. And you'll see here I've got a V here again. That's the top of my stitch. So let's do it again. We're going to go into this next chain here. You've only got 1 loop here. You're going to go under, pull up some yarn, or pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through both loops. Let's do it into the next one. In, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through both loops. And now you can see that we've got 1, 2, 3 stitches. We also have a little chain one that brought us up to there, but we don't need to do anything with that. And let's just keep going, just keep practicing going into the next chain. Pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. And as you can do that a little bit more, you will get a little bit faster, it will get a little bit easier. Sometimes this very first row is the trickiest row because you're working into this thin little chain here. As you start working into more sturdy parts of the project, it does actually get a little easier. So if you want to just start out with maybe 10 chains and single crochet that first row, just do what you need to do. And I'm going to meet you here at the end of the row, and we will see what it's like to keep on single crocheting through to the next row. Okay, I'm coming up to the end of my row of chains and single crochets. I'm going to do the last couple here. And the final chain. Okay, now here is where sometimes you'll find that if you don't pay attention, you're going to get work that goes, instead of going straight up, it might start going in a little bit. And I'm going to show you how to avoid that problem. I know that I had that problem at the beginning when I started crocheting, so you just need to keep in mind what I'm going to tell you here. At the end of your row, you need to chain 1 to bring you up to the next row and turn around. You're going to turn your work. So we're always working from the right to the left. It's opposite of reading. So we've chained up 1. Now remember, this is not a chain here on the hook, and we don't usually do anything with this first chain. It just brings us up to the next row. But now if you might need to turn your work just a little bit so you can see these top V's. Instead of working under just 1, like this top 1 little stitch here, when we single crochet, normally you're going to go under both of those loops. You're going to go under both of the loops of the V. Okay, so you're going to go under both loops of the V, pull up a loop, and you're going to pull through both loops on your hook. We're just doing another row of single crochet. So we're going to find the next stitch here. There's this V here, and it's not too hard to see this little space that you're going to crochet into. Pull up a loop and pull through 2 loops. There is a third loop of, as I was saying at the beginning, there is a third part of the stitch, which is right here. But you don't often have to work into this third loop unless, well, there are patterns that have you working in there, but just when you're starting out, and a regular single crochet is just going through those top 2 loops. Pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through. So you can practice going down your row, single crocheting. You just don't want to forget to chain up to the next row and find that very first stitch and single crochet into there. And if you really aren't sure which one is which one, if you counted your stitches, just make sure that you have the same number of stitches on every row. Often there's going to be a lot of counting to make sure that you're doing it right, or you're in the right spot, or whatever. So and again, the nice thing is if you've made a mistake, you can take your hook out and pull, and it will all come out. Now, as we get to the end of this row, let's be careful here. I've got 1 stitch here. I've got 1 more stitch here. And you'll see that there's still, you're like, am I done this row or am I not? Well, if you were to chain up here, you would really see that, no, I'm not done this row yet. There was still 1 more stitch. Okay, so just turn to look and see, oh yeah, there's that V there. I'm still going to go under that stitch, pull up a loop, pull through 2 loops, and it's a lot more straight there. We don't do anything into that chain that we chained up. The chain up the chain 1 just brings us up to the next row. Okay, so I chained 1, turn, and now I've got the loop on my hook, I've got the chain 1, and this right there at the bottom of that chain 1 is it's the first stitch that I'm going to crochet into. And then you can kind of just look, okay, am I straight here? Yep, that's even there, so I've gotten it into the right stitch. Okay, so that is the slip knot we've learned. We've learned the chain stitch and the single crochet. I hope that's helpful for you and that will help you get going. There's a lot of videos online that will help you learn other stitches. If you just search it in YouTube, you will get many videos of how to do certain ones, but I hope that this will help you at least with some of the first stitches that we need for making a really simple crochet pattern.